1. Chapter 4, On the Road. As soon as you leave the town, the road becomes bumpy and uneven. Even the main county road is mostly made of dirt, at best with a slightly wider surface. Half-human tall artemisia grows on both sides of the road, which is said to be artificially sown. It is believed to be beneficial for protecting the roadbed and increasing the chances of survival in case of accidents. At this moment, a carriage is slowly moving along the road. The car is a cart with two wheels, curved handrails on both sides, and only one old and thin horse pulling the cart. There is an old person and a young person sitting on the cart, with the old person driving the cart in the front. Next to his seat, there is a basket containing wrapped pancakes. Behind him, there are two neatly folded blankets, with a package and a leather trunk underneath the blankets. There is a long sword stuffed in the gap next to them, as well as some long and short wooden sticks. Niss stood behind, both of his feet firmly planted on the handrail, holding a long stick in his hand. He would occasionally jab and block, executing each move with precision. The wind on the road was strong, but his forehead was covered in sweat, and his back was soaked. Becoming a knight is every child's dream, and the Templar Knights are undoubtedly a group of people who stand at the pinnacle of knighthood, unparalleled in both strength and reputation, making them the ultimate dream for children. Previously, Niss would never have imagined that one day he would be involved with the Knights Templar, especially with one of the prominent figures among them. For over a month, he finally learned the old man's identity. The old man's full name was Simon Aragon, a member of the 12 priestly orders within the Templar Knights. These 12 individuals didn't have much real power in their daily lives, but they were responsible for electing the Grand Master who led the entire Templar Knights, so their status was exceptionally high. Although the old man is a priest, he certainly cannot compare to the priests of the Templar Knights. While he may not be as skilled in martial arts as the Templar Knights, he surpasses many ordinary knights. At this moment, Niss is practicing the usage of the long spear taught to him by the old man. Watching the young boy practice diligently, a faint smile appears on the old man's lips. He actually doesn't teach seriously. In true knight training, the first few years are all about laying the foundation, starting with building physical strength. The shortest lance used by knights is 3 meters long, usually between 4 and 5 meters. Without strength, it is impossible to wield it. Although the broadsword used weighs only 3 or 4 caddies, it relies entirely on wrist strength to wield. Without years of hard training, it is merely for show. He taught Niss these things just to appease the child. The old man knew very well that when children heard the words, Templar Knights, they would only think of knights in armor, holding long spears, and exuding an imposing aura. They would never think of priests. Yet, he intended to groom Niss as his successor. Although it is not genuine teaching, the things the old man brings out are definitely authentic. Especially the technique of having Niss step on the bike railing to practice, that is the secret of the Knights Templar. This move was learned from the Saracens. Ordinary people can never imagine the importance the Templar Knights place on their lower body, because only with a stable lower body can they firmly step on the stirrup and exert more force. The Saracens grew up on horseback and learned this lesson at a very young age. The Knights Templar have been fighting against the Saracens and learned this secret from the mouths of captives. Take a break, the road ahead is not easy to walk. The old man flicked his whip and said to the person behind him. After dancing with the long wooden stick for a while, Niss indeed felt a bit sore in his hands. He jumped down from the railing and put the long wooden stick back in its original place. However, he didn't rest, but instead replaced it with a slightly shorter stick. Although shorter, when stood upright, it is still 2/3 as tall. This length represents a great sword, which is also a commonly used weapon by knights. Swinging a sword flower, Niss felt his hand was a little sore. He awkwardly switched to a thorny branch. The branch was light, as if it had no weight at all. It swayed and made a whooshing sound. Deep down, he actually preferred this thing. Unfortunately, the thorny branch represented a rapier, which was completely useless on the battlefield. If I were you, I would practice using the rapier more. The old man didn't turn around, but he could still hear the movement behind him. Why? Niss sat down cross-legged and asked as he rested, "You are a priest. On the battlefield, priests have their own place and do not need us to charge into battle. Instead of wasting energy on unnecessary things, it would be better to pray a few more times or practice the spiritual prayer technique that I taught you. The old man has said such words before. If it were in the past, he would have lost his patience long ago when faced with such an incorrigible student. However, he has different feelings towards Niss. As a devoted teacher, he dedicated his entire life to God. Besides his devout faith, he can be said to have nothing. But now, even that last shred of devout faith is starting to waver. Looking back, the old man suddenly felt lonely, as he didn't even have a single relative. And at this moment, Niss appeared. If at first he only wanted to groom Niss as his successor, then at this moment, he actually didn't care much anymore. The little guy's position in his heart was closer to that of a grandson or a great-grandson. If possible, I don't want to become a priest. Niss hesitantly beat the floor with a switch. When his relatives were fighting over the inheritance and he had no other choice, he joined the church and became a pastor. However, as time passed and the crisis was no longer present, he couldn't help but regret his decision. Although the current church has completely fallen, with lax rules and monks pursuing worldly pleasures without anyone caring, just like that bishop who never forgets to rendezvous with his lover even during official duties, reveling day and night. But regardless, joining the church requires abandoning certain things. No marriage, no children, no personal family. Unfortunately, you have no way out anymore. The old man let out a soft sigh. Yes. Niss also sighed, I have no way out. Since the moment he encountered the old man named Simon, he has had no way out. Do I really only have 10 years? Niss asked. I have no need to deceive you. The old man appeared very calm. The reason why Philip IV and Pope Clement's men cannot find us now is because Hugo has burned his life and forcibly disrupted the celestial mechanism. Anything related to the Knights Templar has been concealed. However, the celestial mechanism cannot be concealed forever. It will eventually become clear and transparent again. By that time, I won't have to worry, but you might have trouble. Niss sat there dejectedly. He did not believe that the old man was just scaremongering. The deeper he delved into this world, the more he felt the immense power of those supernatural forces. And among these supernatural forces, the most mysterious and powerful was undoubtedly the control over the future. Even the mighty Knights Templar had succumbed to this power. Initially, so many Templar Knights were easily captured, not only because they never expected Philip IV to target them, but also because their every move was closely monitored by the spies around Philip IV. The timing of the attack was when the Templar Knights were least prepared. The Templar Knights also possessed similar powers, but they were overshadowed by Philip IV and Pope Clement V, who concealed the secrets before the crisis was even discovered. No matter how powerful the force is, it cannot compare to seizing the initiative. In a sense, high-level prophets or top-level tomb recognizers are absolutely invincible existences. They can see through the future, calmly set up or break a situation. Their opponents can only be another high-level prophet or top-level stargazer. The reason why the elderly person says he will be fine is because he himself is a high-ranking prophet, and almost half of the members of the 12 priesthood are high-ranking prophets. This time they are on guard. Once someone tries to find them, they will sense it first and then disrupt the celestial mechanism. In this level of confrontation, defense is always more advantageous than offense. Is it really possible to reach the level of a bishop in just 10 years? Niss asked. During those days in the town, he stayed by the bishop's side all day long, witnessing the terrifying power of a bishop. That bishop could actually make time flow backwards and trace events that had happened recently. Fortunately, just as he was about to trace back to when he abandoned that horse, the image was disrupted and turned into nothingness. That was the power of the old man. Didn't I say there was a second option? You can go find a sacred artifact. As long as you keep it close to you, no prophecy or magic of any kind will be able to sense you. The old man spoke exceptionally casually. However, Niss definitely doesn't think so. The church has at least 7,000 or 8,000 bishops, with each diocese having at least one bishop, so bishops are not considered rare. The Holy Grail is completely different. The church has a total of 271 recorded sacred artifacts, either held by the Holy See or enshrined in famous cathedrals and monasteries, or collected by certain religious denominations. The custody of such sacred objects is absolutely tight. Trying to steal them is like rescuing someone from a prison of the religious tribunal. The Knights Templar may have this ability, but he certainly doesn't. Can't something else be used as a substitute? Niss asked. The reason why it is difficult to get hold of holy artifacts is not only because they are indeed powerful, but also because they all have special meanings. Some are gifts from God, while others are created by a certain saint. And what he needs is just something that can shield the probing of prophecy-related divine magic. Holy artifacts can automatically condense faith power, and faith power itself has the ability to distort the celestial mechanism, so any divination is ineffective against it. Perhaps there are other things that can achieve this as well. Of course, you can. If you can get hold of a divine artifact, you can also rest easy. The old man said, "This is obviously a joke." Niss rolled his eyes. There are at least nearly 300 holy artifacts, but there are only 24 items that can be called divine artifacts in the entire church. Otherwise, you will personally kill 10,000 people, soak their blood into your battle robe, and the aggrieved souls gathered on the robe can also serve as a shield. The old man turned his head and glanced at Niss. "I'm not that evil." Niss shrugged his shoulders. However, privately he is somewhat wavering. Killing innocent people is definitely an evil act, but he can still go to the battlefield. Another thought crossed his mind. If he had the ability to slaughter tens of thousands on the battlefield, his power would likely far exceed that of the bishop. When I used to listen to my father telling stories, those heroic characters would effortlessly kill people on the battlefield like cutting grass. But the wars he heard about from the elderly were completely different. It is already very terrifying for a warrior to be able to kill 100 people in a battle, and the opponents will keep a close eye on you. Once you make a move, there will definitely be strong opponents coming to face you. It is definitely not easy to achieve such military achievements. If you achieve the feat of killing 100 people again, congratulations. The next time you will be the primary target for the enemy to deal with and will be closely watched by a group of people. I am disheartened by what you said. I should practice my martial arts more. Even if I am discovered, at least I will have a chance to fight back. Niss said half seriously and half jokingly. That's one way to do it, but since you've made up your mind, you shouldn't bother practicing knight combat skills. That stuff is useless for you. The old man said with a smile. Indeed. Niss scratched his head. What he needed to be proficient in were the skills of breaking through and escaping. It was impossible to carry a long spear as a weapon when escaping, and a large sword would also be too cumbersome. I will do as you said and practice the rapier more. Niss shook the thorny branch in his hand. If someone wanted to capture him, they wouldn't be wearing heavy armor. Against regular chainmail, a slender sword would be sufficient. The old man sighed lightly and shook his head. As a priest, thinking about engaging in sword fights with people all day long, the little guy really left him speechless. The sun gradually sets towards the west, and large patches of fiery clouds in the western sky slowly drift forward. The old person looked at the sky and then looked into the distance. The road stretches endlessly, with a wilderness on both sides and not even a single farmland in sight. There is not a trace of human presence within the range of vision. It seems that we will be spending the night in the wilderness again tonight. The old man said helplessly. Niss didn't really mind, maybe he wasn't used to it at first, but now he doesn't care about sleeping outside anymore. Along the way, for at least one day out of the 3, they spent the night in the wilderness. He actually suspects that the old man may have done it on purpose, because every time he spends the night outdoors, he learns something new. The first time, he learned how to make a fire. The second time, he learned how to pick wild fruits and vegetables. The third time, he learned how to find a safe place to spend the night. Such days are indeed tough. He used to be accustomed to being served all the time, but now he has to dig a trench to protect against snakes and insects before going to sleep. It's incomparable to how it used to be. However, he did not feel bored, and even found this kind of life very interesting. He was even a little excited, wanting to know what the old man would teach him this time. Unconsciously, the carriage has already left the main road, and the old man is driving the carriage along a small river. The riverbank is covered with dense reeds, and there are large flocks of water birds nesting in the reed beds. So, as the carriage passes by, water birds occasionally take flight. This narrow path became increasingly difficult to traverse, with the carriage constantly jolting. After all, this carriage was not specifically designed for travel. Its body was directly attached to the frame instead of being suspended by iron chains. As a result, even the slightest unevenness in the ground caused intense vibrations in the carriage. Nis simply jumped off and walked behind. The old man, however, remained steady, calmly sitting in the driver's seat. After traveling over a mile, the main road was no longer visible behind them, prompting the old man to finally stop the carriage. He got off and pounded his stiff legs, stretched lazily, and then tossed the whip onto the carriage. Nis had already hurried ahead, as he had many things to do. First, take the yoke off the horse's back and let them rest for the whole day. The horse deserves a break too. There are wild grasses everywhere nearby, so he doesn't need to cut grass specifically to feed the horses. Niss is not worried about this horse getting lost. The church has provided such a grandfather-level old horse. Although its physical strength and endurance are no longer good, it has its advantages, which is being obedient and not running around. Let the horse eat grass by itself. Niss brought 2 blankets and laid them on the ground, which served as both a bed and a blanket. It could even be used as a tent when it rained. Dig a trench around the sleeping area at night. The trench doesn't have to be very deep. After digging it, sprinkle some sulfur and lime into it. These things can deter snakes and insects. He doesn't want to wake up in the morning and find creepy things crawling on his body. After completing all of this, he also had to dig a fire pit about 5 or 6 meters away from the tent. This was used to attract insects. If camping by the river, the fire had to burn until dawn, otherwise, when they woke up the next day, there would definitely be all kinds of bugs everywhere. The trench on the ground couldn't stop flying creatures. In the distance, Mr. Simon is sitting comfortably in the grass. Watching Niss skillfully do all this, the old man was very satisfied. Niss didn't have the temper of other noble children, and that was why he was satisfied. A person's abilities can be cultivated, but their character is difficult to change. The successor he is looking for certainly cannot be rude and arrogant, nor can they be haughty and indifferent, and they definitely cannot be weak and delicate. Seeing that Niss is almost done, the old man smacked his lips and said, "These past few days, we've been eating dry rations or nibbling on wild fruits. Our mouths have become so bland that they're bubbling. Tonight, let's change the taste. Go and catch some water birds or get a few fish." Saying that, he casually brushed aside to the side. Beside him was a cluster of reeds. His hands were like sharp sickles, and wherever they passed, the reeds fell in unison. He gathered the fallen reeds into a bundle, and with a gentle stroke of his hand, the bundle of reeds instantly became the same length. Next, all of them are some meticulous activities, where the elderly people have wiped diagonally on one end of each reed, and it instantly becomes as sharp as a knife. In just a moment, a bundle of shuttlecocks appeared in front of Niss. These are small-sized shuttle darts, less than half a meter long, similar to arrows, with sharp tips. Strangely, all of their tips shimmer with a metallic sheen. Niss touched it lightly and immediately felt the sharpness and hardness of this thing. This is the sharpness technique. Its effect only lasts for about 40 minutes, so don't waste any more time. The old man knew that Niss didn't quite understand. In the past, he only imparted and taught knowledge related to gods, so as long as it was divine magic, the little one would recognize it, but not if it was changed to sorcery. Is this magic? Niss appears unusually curious. Although both divine arts and magic have their own strengths, it is hard to say which one is stronger. But in the eyes of the world, magic always seems more mysterious and powerful. This may be related to the fact that the church has been constantly trying to suppress magic but has never been successful. It should be noted that there is a difference of over 100 times in terms of numbers and scale between the two. If magic didn't have anything special about it, it would probably have been completely eradicated long ago. Some things, you just need to understand in your heart. The old man smiled but did not answer. There are also many people in the church who study magic, and everyone only does but does not speak. Niss naturally understands that recently, he has developed some genuine feelings towards the church. He is no longer surprised by the church's actions of saying one thing and doing another. For him, This is also a good thing, he can easily learn from others. He took the shuttle dart from the old man and sneaked into the reeds. There are indeed many water birds in the reed thicket. Not long after walking, I heard a series of flapping wings. Niss' right hand has been holding a throwing dart, ready to be thrown at any time. His reaction is also very quick. Just as the birds flew out of the reeds, his arm had already swung out, and the dart in his hand shot out swiftly. The first time he took a shot, he didn't expect to hit the target. When he was at home, he had never played with this thing. It was only after he hit the road that the old man taught him some techniques for throwing darts. I don't know if it was his luck or if he really had this talent, but that dart actually went into the flock of birds, and when the dart landed on the water, it pierced one of the birds on top. I hit one. Niss jumped up. Compared to what he had learned during the previous camping trips, this was much more interesting. You taught me some really impressive things. Niss attributed his ability to hit the target to the unique secret of the Templar Knights, and he waved his arms towards the old man. The old man had a calm expression on his face, as if it was normal. However, deep down, he was somewhat surprised. He was speculating whether it was just luck earlier when he heard Niss cheering again, but this time the cheer was very short-lived. I saw the little guy staring across the river in an unusually sullen manner. On the river surface near the opposite bank, there is a shot-through water bird floating. The bird is not completely dead yet, and it is twitching incessantly. Just now, maybe it was luck, but now 2 shots and 2 hits, it definitely can't be luck anymore. The old man suddenly remembered the skills that the messenger god Mercury was good at, which included dart throwing and archery. In mythology, Mercury was not a powerful deity and rarely showed any performance on the battlefield, but no deity was willing to provoke him because he had a bunch of peculiar abilities that made him very troublesome. A thought suddenly emerged from the old man's mind: perhaps the path he had designed for the little one was not the best. In his original plan, he intended to groom Niss as his successor, allowing the little one to follow the path he had once walked, with him by his side to guide him. This path should have been very smooth, and future achievements would have been great. Unfortunately, this plan did not take into account the little one's own talent. If it is truly a God-given gift, it would be such a waste not to make use of it. Having God-given talents, such individuals often have endless potential for improvement. The only problem is that they have to find their own way. The elderly person is reviewing their initial ideas, while Niss is worrying about dinner. He just discovered something. Because their carriage came all the way, all the water birds on this side were driven to the other side of the river, and colorful creatures like these can be seen everywhere over there. The river doesn't look deep, but Niss had a previous experience of wading through water, an experience that he will never forget. It is now evening, and he feels a slight chill in the wind, which means the water will be even colder. If there was a dog by his side, preferably a big dog like a calf, but unfortunately he only had an old horse that couldn't even run. Suddenly, Niss had a flash of inspiration and remembered that there were a few spools of thread in the car. He had found them in the attic and had originally planned to use them for future repairs. Running back to the carriage, he opened the package and started searching through it. All the small things are at the bottom of the package. There are 6 bundles of thread, each with a different color, and they are all the finest silk thread, smooth and delicate yet exceptionally strong. Niss pulled out a thread from one of the skeins, and then took a shuttle dart as a ruler to measure about 20 meters. This length is definitely sufficient. Tie one end of the thread to your wrist, and the other end to the tip of a throwing dart, then wrap it around in circles. I used my hand to weigh this modified shuttlecock dart, and the thread has no weight at all, so the center of gravity of the shuttlecock dart has hardly changed. Niss is very satisfied with such a result. He walked to the river carrying a shuttlecock. Groups of water birds were waiting on the other side of the river. They obviously thought they were safe and continued to play and frolic there, unaware that danger was approaching. Looking at so many prey, Niss decided to choose a big one. He just saw several bean geese on the other side of the river. The sun has set, and the sky quickly darkened. A fire has been lit in the fire pit, with a tree branch on each side. A plump goose is being roasted over the fire, and the fat is oozing out of its skin like beads of sweat, dripping onto the fire. Each time the fat drips, it makes a sizzling sound, and the fire leaps up, spreading a tempting aroma all around. Smelling the fragrance, Niss felt even hungrier, but the old man continued to turn the fat goose calmly, sprinkling salt and seasoning evenly on it. His movements were gentle and careful, and his technique was exceptionally skilled. When it comes to barbecue, no one is better than the Saracens. They have mastered dozens of spices and can create thousands of recipes, each with a unique flavor. The Saracens are not as savage as people imagine. They have many knowledgeable individuals. In their society, scholars are a profession, not just a title. The Saracens are wealthy, at least some of them are. Their geographical location is really advantageous. The old man was doing his work while giving lectures to Niss. This was the case every day along the way. The old man has always been like this when giving lectures. He talks about whatever comes to his mind, but it's not scattered and formless. Each time, he revolves around a specific topic. Now, he is talking about the Holy Land and the Saracen people. I don't know how long it took, but the old man stopped his hands. He took the fat goose off the fire and casually pulled out 2 blades of grass from the ground. The 2 grasses were originally green, but when the old man handed one of them to Niss, the grass had turned into an iron gray color, emitting a metallic sheen. This is no longer grass, but rather a sharp little knife. Magic is truly amazing. Niss just felt a little itchy just now, and now his desire to learn magic has been even more aroused. When he said this, he was actually testing to see if the old man would be willing to teach him magic or not. The old man knows what Niss is thinking. There are things you can do, but you can't say. Can I learn? Niss just asked directly. It should be possible, as long as you can find a suitable teacher. The elderly person ignores this topic. Can you teach me? Niss, let's make this clear. Since there is a renowned teacher nearby, why go far to seek one? I don't know much, but the sharpness technique is the most commonly used magic. Almost everyone in the Temple Knight Order knows it. The purpose is to make the weapons sharper before going into battle. The old man said, "This is like refusing again. I really want to learn." Niss is a very stubborn little guy. I saw that I could no longer avoid it, and the old man sighed softly. In fact, there is a chance that might fulfill you. After you arrive at the monastery, you will formally take the vows. Every person who serves God has an opportunity to experience the immense power bestowed by God, to perform any kind of divine magic using God's power, even the ultimate magic that only the Pope can perform. You can also have a taste of it. The elderly person's words at this moment are his newly formed thoughts. Just now, the little guy actually hit the target with every throw of his boomerang while hunting. This is definitely a divine gift. Having such a powerful talent would be a waste if not utilized. Although the idea is good, there is one problem. He simply doesn't have the ability to guide others. So the old man wants to find a better teacher for Niss. Who else is more omniscient and omnipotent than God? Who is more suitable to be the little one's teacher? If given the opportunity, I would prefer to know how to easily obtain a sacred artifact. Niss is somewhat lacking in greed, but this can also be understood. The inheritance dispute made him understand the importance of life over property. Similarly, compared to strength, life is obviously more important. The old man smiled bitterly. Don't be too greedy. God's blessings are limited. If your demands are too excessive, all you will see are vague and unclear answers. I guarantee you will never be able to guess what they mean. It's really a pity. Niss is indeed a bit disappointing, but upon careful consideration, he feels that this is normal. If there are no restrictions, then it is not a gift, but a loophole. Niss was thinking. The old man had already started moving his hands. He quickly used that sharp grass cutter to cut and slash back and forth on the roasted fat goose. In the blink of an eye, the entire fat goose was divided into more than 10 pieces. Even the bones were taken apart. The whole process unexpectedly gave a sense of beauty. Your culinary skills are much better than the cook in my house. Niss couldn't help but exclaim, monks are the most leisurely people in the world. Besides praying, they have nothing else to do. They have plenty of time, and if you want, you can study all sorts of things, whether it's magic or cooking, it's no problem. The old man said with a hint of self-mockery. Niss thought about the priest in the town and other people, and it seems to be true. The servants in his house, needless to say, have hardly any free time. The farmers in the estate are also similar. They not only have to work in the fields but also bear the labor of the estate. His father can be said to be a relatively leisurely person, but he also has a lot of official business to handle and has to deal with estate matters in his spare time. And that priest, besides leading the townspeople in worship every week and being sought after when someone fell ill, had nothing else to do most of the time. Even the cleaning of the church was done by Camel Gank. How did you arrange it in the beginning? He wanted to borrow the old man's way of doing things when he was young. The old man remained silent for a long time. He was touched by Nice's question. Once a person gets older, they often indulge in memories of the past. When I was young, I was quite leisurely, and most of my time was spent reading books. The old man spoke slowly. This is not what Nice wanted to hear, so he asked further, "Don't you practice martial arts and magic?" "I don't have the same sense of urgency as you do. Magic is something I learned after joining the Holy Temple Knights. As for martial arts, we don't really need to learn any martial arts. Once you have enough money, you can apply to the church for a warrior's soul. With a warrior's soul, you will instantly possess the strength and experience of a powerful warrior." The elderly person feels a bit frustrated with Nice's lack of focus. A priest should look like a priest, always thinking about martial arts and magic. For a priest, it's like seeking fish up a tree. Master is so powerful. If that's the case, why are most of the members in the Templar Knights still knights? At this age, admiration still goes to strength. Effort equals reward, and even God cannot change this. The power obtained through shortcuts will always be limited. The elderly cannot lie against their conscience, they can only speak the truth. However, he has a very convincing reason to persuade Nice. Unfortunately, it is too late for you to become a knight. The training to become a knight must start from a young age and lay a solid foundation before reaching full maturity. You are already in the process of maturing. Neston suddenly remembered when he was 7 years old, his father had given him a choice of whether he wanted to become a knight. If he wished to, his father would ask Count Dewey of Distrin to take him in. At that time, if he had made a different choice, perhaps everything would have been different. With Count Dewey backing him up, his relatives would definitely not dare to have any improper thoughts about the inheritance, and there would not have been this turmoil. He would have inherited his father's estate and title, and become a formal knight after coming of age. Nice can't bear to think about it anymore. Suddenly, he felt tired of martial arts because it reminded him of the opportunity he had missed to change his destiny. Originally, his destiny did not need to be as rough and bumpy as it is now. Two mountains stand side by side, not very tall but steep. In the middle, there is a stone fortress spanning across the mountain pass. The walls of the stone fortress are not very high, only about 3 meters, and they are built very roughly. The walls have not been treated at all, and they are extremely unsightly with bumps and unevenness. There is also a moat in front of the wall, which is only about 5 or 6 meters wide and about 1 meter deep. It is not enough to block the passage of the army, as it is a border checkpoint. After passing the stone fortress, it was no longer the territory of the Kingdom of Franconia. Nis couldn't help but feel nervous, knowing that they were so close to escaping alive. Regarding the Knights Templar, countries do not pay much attention to them. Although they claim to obey the orders of the Church, they consider the Knights Templar as an illegal organization and conduct searches everywhere. In reality, most countries are just putting on a show. They are happy to confiscate the assets of the Knights Templar within their own countries, but they are not very interested in capturing people. Relax a bit. The old man whispered, otherwise, you can pray. Nice thought, this is a good way. He knelt on the floor, hands clasped together, head slightly bowed, silently reciting a prayer. Sure, here is the translation. Indeed, that chaotic heart immediately calmed down. The carriage moved slowly, and the stone fortress was filled with vehicles waiting for inspection. Most of them were trucks carrying goods, ranging from straw to barrels of wine. All the vehicles had to stop and undergo a very thorough inspection. Due to the slow progress, the long line of vehicles stretched for 2 or 3 miles. The reason for such tight scrutiny is obviously due to the recent incident of the Templar Knights prison break. During the prayer in Nice, all that could be heard were bursts of curses. Although it was Philip IV who caused such inconvenience, no one dared to curse the king, and all the curses were directed at the Knights Templar. This made Niss feel extremely sad. I don't know how long it took, but their carriage finally moved to the front of the stone fortress, and it was their turn to be inspected. Several soldiers were standing in groups of 2 or 3 on the stone fortress, each holding a crossbow. However, these crossbows were merely decorations as they were not drawn, and there were no arrows on them. The crossbow takes a long time to open, and if one is not prepared in advance, they won't have time to react if someone suddenly breaks through. With such heavy military presence and strict precautions, it turns out it was all just for show. However, it can't be said that it was completely useless. He noticed a pile of miscellaneous items near the checkpoint, including fruits, vegetables, meat, grains, and cloth. These were obviously the benefits that came after strict security measures. The carriage stopped, and the old man resumed his cautious and careful demeanor. Niss then stopped praying and took out the customs documents from his package, handing them over to the soldier who came to inspect. There is nothing worth inspecting on this carriage. It is empty, and any long or short wooden sticks that were originally used for training have been disposed of before arriving here. The only thing that is somewhat conspicuous now is the large sword. However, it was precisely that big sword that made the soldiers hesitant to act rashly. When Niss took out the customs documents, the 3 soldiers knew that they were right not to act rashly, because the customs documents had the bishop's signature and seal. However, they didn't know the authenticity of this thing, so after looking at the customs clearance documents, one of the soldiers took the documents and walked towards the stone fortress. The stone fortress is not very big, divided into 2 areas. On the left side, there are 5 houses and a small open space, which is the barracks. On the right side, there are 3 slightly larger houses. The soldier headed towards one of the big houses. Unlike the other houses, this house had a cross nailed to the door, and there was a pole in front of the door with a bell hanging on top. The soldier went in and quickly came out again, this time with a priest following behind him. The military chaplain had already verified the authenticity of the clearance documents and was certain they were genuine, but he was filled with doubt in his heart. The 2 soldiers who were originally guarding the carriage quickly stepped aside when they saw the priest approaching. The priest walked closer and carefully examined Niss from head to toe, then glanced at the carriage. He also noticed the large sword, but didn't pay much attention to it. It was perfectly normal to carry such a weapon for self-defense during a long journey. Besides, with just a casual glance, he had already confirmed that the sword had never been stained with blood. Don't they have monasteries in Frankfurt? Do you really need to travel such a long distance? The priest asked rudely towards Niss, which was the root of his confusion. Everything is as expected, so the little one is not at all panicked. The bishop arranged it this way, and I believe he must have a reason for doing so. The bishop is a close friend of my father's and he was the one who baptized me. This is indeed the arrangement of the bishop, but it is the result of his request. He deliberately confused the 2 bishops and there is a lot of ambiguity in his words, but there is absolutely no falsehood. Sure enough, the military chaplain didn't notice anything wrong. Before he came over, he had already used his divine skill to detect lies. If it was a lie, it naturally couldn't deceive him. Because of this, he was slightly taken aback. He certainly didn't dare to question the decision of a bishop, but he still had many doubts. How old are you? This is also one of the reasons why he feels confused. Do you doubt my identity as a pastor? Niss has heard similar questions before. This identity is what I exchanged all my possessions for. Niss is not worried about saying this too directly. As the old man said, this is a corrupt era, and the church also emphasizes equal exchange. The pastor still hasn't found any signs of lying. He started to believe a little bit. It is not uncommon for someone to donate all their property to the church. Some of it is out of devotion to God, but more of it is due to some undisclosed reasons. And a child donating all of their possessions indicates that their parents are definitely no longer around, so the reasons behind it can be easily guessed. Most likely it's relatives plotting to seize the property. With this in mind, the priest somewhat understands why the bishop arranged for the little one to be so far away. Clearly it is a form of protection. Although he already believed that there was no problem with Niss, the priest still refused to let go easily. please wait a moment. He turned around and entered the stone fortress. After a moment, a pigeon flew out from the stone fortress. It was a specially trained church pigeon used for communication, more intelligent than ordinary carrier pigeons. There is a city 20 kilometers away, and there is a big cathedral in the city. Anything that happened in the past 1 or 2 months will definitely be recorded inside the cathedral. An hour later, the pigeon flew back again. This time, the priest did not come. Instead, the soldier returned the customs clearance documents to Nis and then ordered to let them pass. The old man raised his hand and cracked the whip, and the horse pulling the carriage started moving. The carriage passed through the stone gate and then proceeded steadily forward. Niss looked back at the stone fortress, his heart filled with indescribable emotions. He did feel relieved. Now he could finally get a good night's sleep without constantly worrying. At the same time, he also felt a bit nostalgic. After all, that is his homeland, the place where he has lived for over 10 years, and he doesn't know when he will have the chance to come back. Maybe he won't be able to return in his lifetime. Feeling the melancholy in Niss, the old man said, "Are you so reluctant to leave?" "Even if I don't want to, I can't do it. I don't want to be burned to death." Niss muttered, "One thing you better understand, after joining the church, you no longer belong to any country," the old man advised. Upon hearing this, Niss' curiosity was piqued. Originally, he thought that members of the Templar Knights should be filled with resentment towards the church. However, the old man first tempted him to donate his property to the church, and then persuaded him to join the church as a priest. No matter how you look at it, he is filled with gratitude towards the church. I am curious, don't you have any opinions about the church? This time it is obvious that King Philip and the church are working together to deal with the Knights Templar. The old man paused for a moment. He had been deliberately avoiding this question before. After a moment of silence, the old man shook his head and said, "It's not the entire church, only the Vatican, or more precisely, a group of people around the current Pope Clementi, who were involved in this conspiracy. The church is much more complex than you can imagine." What he said is actually quite contradictory. Saying that he doesn't resent is fake. But his power, the power of the entire Templar Knights, all comes from God, from the church. If they want to hide themselves, if they want revenge, they must rely on this power. So he can only target his resentment on a very small scale. The old man seemed worried that Niss didn't understand, so he further explained, "You must remember, the church is like water, and we are like fish. Fish cannot survive without water. The difficulties we are facing this time are actually caused by Philip and Clementi, these two fish, joining forces to devour the wealthy Templar Knights. Is it true that the rumors outside are saying this? Philip IV has ordered the arrest of the Knights Templar and the eradication of the Templar Order, all for the sake of seizing their immense wealth. However, there are also rumors circulating that you all intend to establish your own nation, which has greatly angered Philip IV. Is there any truth to this?" Niss had long wanted to ask the old man, but never had the opportunity. This time, the old man brought up the matter himself, so Niss naturally continued to ask. The reasons behind this are difficult to explain. There are many reasons. The elderly person found it a bit difficult to answer. "Just tell me. Consider it as if you're attending class on my behalf." Niss used the trick of pestering persistently. He had long felt that the old man treated him like a grandson, so this move was definitely effective. After hesitating for a moment, the old man finally softened. "The reasons you just mentioned are that the Templar Knights are indeed very wealthy, and Philip himself borrowed a lot of money from us, so he wants to default on his debt." The old man's eyes flickered with a fierce light, but his gaze soon became dim. The old man would definitely not admit to the second rumor. In fact, the senior members of the Knights Templar did not have such an idea. However, this rumor did not come out of nowhere. There were people who proposed that if Philip IV did not pay, a piece of land should be given to the Knights Templar. The old man continued to say in a dejected tone, "The current order of the Templars is no longer the same as before. The original purpose of the order was to resist the Saracens. However, since the loss of the Holy Land, many members of the order no longer wish to defend that land. Perhaps this is also the reason why we have been abandoned by God." Niss felt the sadness in the old man's heart. He really hadn't expected that the Templar Knights, whom he had admired since childhood and considered as symbols of radiance and glory, had actually fallen. After finally speaking out the words that had been kept deep in his heart, the old man suddenly felt much more relieved. Since he had even said these words out loud, there was nothing left to hide. The old man began to reveal some insider information that the world was unaware of. Philip has many reasons to hold a grudge against the Knights Templar. The reason he borrowed money from the Templars was because of 2 recent wars. First, he fought against Edward on the other side of the strait, and then he had a war with Count Flanders. He spent money like water, but in the end, both wars yielded no substantial results. He wasted his money. The role played by the Knights Templar in this situation is not honorable because they also lent money to Edward, who then passed on a portion of that money to Count Flanders. In these 2 wars, the Knights Templar were the true winners, but as a result, Philip saw them as a thorn in his side. The things that came out of the old man's mouth increasingly shocked Niss. He never imagined that the Knights Templar, just like the Church, were only interested in money. For almost half a century, the wars that occurred within the Church's sphere of influence almost always had the shadow of the Knights Templar behind them. Are you saying that the downfall of the Templar Knights was entirely self-inflicted? Niss came up with such a chilling answer. The old man nodded slowly.